Hi everyone, welcome to the first official companion podcast of the Right All Along newsletter, hosted by yours truly, Brittany Temple, the writer behind the Substack newsletter, Right All Along, which you likely subscribe to if you are listening to this here today, or maybe you're watching me on YouTube because I am going to be doing this via video, which should be a very interesting journey. I'm not fully clear on what I'm doing in that realm, but I'm gonna learn as I go along. As you can tell, I'm already struggling with reflection issues. You can see my windows reflected in the glass behind me. We're rolling with it. We're rolling with it. If you read my most recent newsletter, then you might remember that at the end, I teased an announcement coming, so welcome to the announcement. Surprise, this is it. I am going to be producing this little mini podcast in between newsletters, and I'll get into the logistics in a second. I plan to address the same subjects that I cover in my newsletter, like relationships of all kind, personal and professional, our relationships with ourselves, our bodies, but it's going to be a little different. So, shall we rig it down? So once a month, you're still going to be getting what you've always gotten, which is basically an examination of and really an undoing of the ways that I kept myself small, both literally and figuratively in my life as a young woman and into adulthood in regards to who I am, the ways that I speak up, what I'm willing to speak up about. Anyway, if you're here, you likely already know what you're getting. So let's talk about the new stuff. Some of you already know that in my 9-to-5 life, I am a podcast producer and creator and editor. So this feels like a nice natural progression and a good step up as I look to expand this little newsletter of mine. That's really why I'm doing this, because I want to show up more and in more places. So let's break it down. In between the longer pieces, I'm going to be sending shorter, shoot from the hip style newsletters that will be paired with one of these little mini podcasts like the one you're listening to now. And the subjects will range from maybe expanding on something that I talked about in my most recent newsletter or something I wrote previously, or telling you a funny story that has absolutely no moral resolve. It's just hilarious, and I've been dying to share it with this community because that happens more than you know. That like I just want to talk about this one funny story or something. I want to share it, and it doesn't feel like there's a lesson in it, so I don't. But I want to do more of that. I might share something that I read or I listened to. I'm really going to let it take shape as I move along, and I really want it to be casual and whatever I feel like sharing in that moment. So you'll be hearing from me every 2 weeks. One of the posts per month is going to be similar to what you've always gotten, and one will have this little mini podcast and just a short little written piece that goes along with it. So today I'm going to just give you a little sense of what that's going to look like by talking a little bit about what I wrote earlier in the month, just doing some kind of expanded thoughts on that I didn't get to share in the written piece because I edit out so much, you really have no idea. It's crazy. Earlier this month, I wrote a piece called I'm Not Running Anymore, where I addressed the true panic that I initially felt after a doctor told me that I needed to stop running because of an accumulation of damage and old injuries in my knee and my hip. I had reached that breaking point where I had to make a serious change if I wanted to avoid surgery. And that initial panic was related to a fear that no longer running would result in my gaining fat on my body. And I had that old voice in my head that was telling me, you don't need to stop running. Don't listen to this guy. You're fine, you're good. And honestly, at the time, I was going to a gym that I loved, and it was high intensity interval training classes, and a third of those classes was spent pounding on the treadmill. I mean, I really couldn't see myself giving that up, even though the doctor was telling me, if you don't give that up, you will need surgery on 2 of your major joints. It's crazy. But after that initial panic, I was able to find my footing again, and finding that footing is exactly what I want to talk about today. It took me a very long time, and as evidenced by this story that I am telling, my old way of thinking is not completely gone from my brain. It sneaks back in, but I have enough logic in my personal arsenal now to know that my value is not tied up in the size of my body. Whatever comes for my size and my shape, it is not indicative of my value and my worth. A huge, huge part of reaching that point and being able to recognize those two key points was revamping my social media feeds in a big way. Big way. So the first thing that I did was unfollow the people who I could tell that I was either hate following them, or if after seeing their posts I felt some kind of sad or negative feeling. It's on me to curate my feed in a way that I don't feel like garbage after I've been scrolling. And it's hard that the social media conversation is a bigger one, obviously, but one of the best things you can do, and what you are super in control of, is who you follow. So those people gotta go if we're talking about protecting our mental health and finding peace with our body. The other type of unfollow that I did was for those people who posture as experts about products that will act as any level of magic in our lives, whether that's a de-bloat tea or a vitamin supplement. Like, come on. We have all seen the influencers out there claiming that they simply cannot start their day without drinking that Athletic Greens drink, AG1 or whatever it's called. But I had seen it so much that I took it upon myself to do a little digging, and it really just takes a simple Google search to find out that a lot of great people, trusted sources, scientists, they're raising really important questions about the safety and efficacy of that product. These influencers are out here telling you that they can't live without this product, that they can't start their day without this product, and they're just straight up lying. It's a brand deal. So it's hard though, because we've developed this false sense of trust in these people because we watch our lives day in and day out, and then we got that 20% off code. I mean, honestly, it makes perfect sense that we're ready and willing to buy, especially if we think that whatever product they're using is going to make us look like them. And aside from the legitimacy of the products they're selling, genetics is a super important part of this conversation that I feel like no one is ever talking about. I heard Melissa Urban touch on it recently, and I was like, thank you, somebody, for saying that genetics matters as far as how your body's going to react to anything. If you and I do the same exact diet and exercise regimen for X amount of time, 2-3 months, our bodies are not going to look the same at the end of it. Even if I did it with somebody who has a similar build or weight, whatever, our bodies are still not going to react the same way because we have different physiology. Every body has different capabilities. So when I see an influencer who is already super slim, super slender, visible ab muscles even, I'm talking about somebody specific that I'm thinking of in my mind, visible abs, and then 2 side-by-side photos implying that one is the after photo from drinking some de-bloat tea and saying that she looks so much better after drinking this random stuff. I'm thinking about the women who buy that product because they think, maybe I will get thin like her if I drink this. Maybe I'll finally feel good if I drink this. And again, genetics and brand deals. That's the things at play here. Genetics and brand deals. And it's totally reasonable that we have bought into these people and the products they're selling. I spent many years of my life looking to different people, thinking that they might finally have the answer that will get my body to the smallest size possible, which was my goal for a long time. But the truth is that these influencers are marketers. That's truly what they are. And they're just another cog in the wheel of capitalism. And they are actually banking on your insecurities to help you stay committed to following along and to financially investing in them and the story that they're selling. And a lot of cases show that the story is that you will be thinner if you buy my XYZ, or if you buy this product, or if you do this exercise routine, or if you get this app. I mean, the examples are truly endless at this point. So part of the process of feeling neutral about your body, I think, is seeing these internet people for who they are and what they're doing for what it is. And that's selling. And I'm not, no shade on, if that's how they feel good about making their money, then good for them. It's on us to look away if we can tell that they're full of shit. Curate your feeds accordingly. And aside from unfollowing people, you could also fill your feed with more positive messages, or people who just really actually do know what they're talking about in terms of diet culture or any related subject. So for example, one of my absolute favorite people to follow on Instagram is Maya Kwan. Her Instagram handle is foodbody.peace. And she calls herself the anti-diet dietitian, which I absolutely love. And she not only shares great information about living healthfully, but she also speaks out about how diet culture manipulates us and how it gets us thinking that we are less than if we have body fat. And that's crazy. That's just crazy. So in the written part of this week's newsletter, I will include some links to some really great people to follow, including Maya. So the homework that I'm leaving you with today is not just to fix your feeds, which you absolutely need to do, but I also want you to start thinking about how you can be an active participant in choosing to love yourself and treat yourself better. And you have to be willing to mentally invest in finding that peace with your body, because you're not just going to wake up one day and feel it. It really, I freaking wish. Wouldn't that be nice? But if you're somebody like me who has struggled for the greater part of your life with accepting your size and shape for what it is, it really isn't an overnight process. But just like absolutely anything that is worth doing in this world, it's going to take some effort, and you're going to have to mentally invest in it. So the next time you want to beat yourself up for how you look, I want you to remember what I'm saying here, in that your value is not linked to your body size or how you look. And it's also not your fault that you came to judge yourself so harshly, but it is your responsibility to figure out how you're going to move forward and how you're going to treat yourself better, because this is literally our only life to live. And I can't imagine spending the whole time beating myself up for silly things like physical appearance. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the first episode of the Right All Along Companion podcast. I'm very excited to see where this goes. It's gonna be funny because I am learning as I go. So I can't even imagine what is going to unfold here, but thanks for listening and thanks for coming along.